Good day, everyone. So, for today, we will be going to discuss methods of philosophizing under the chapter 2. In the last chapter, or in our last meeting, we tackled about the process of doing philosophy, right? And we also emphasized the importance of holism, or the holistic point of view. For this lesson, methods of philosophizing, we will be dealing with the various ways of doing philosophy. In this chapter also, we will be going to discuss on how are we going to look for some methods or ways in finding a truth and recognize which is which as an opinion. So dito madidiscuss natin yung truth and opinion. And ina-explain din dito sa chapter na to kung saan um, we encounter diverse or a lot of information from various sources. Alright? And some of it may be helpful, but there are also some information which may mislead us or you as an individual, just like yung mga fake news natin. So, di ba, minsan hindi natin ma-identify kung or we find difficulty if it is true or it is just a fake, right? So, we encounter that experience. So, that's why in this subject, philosophy, it will teach you on how to investigate more and evaluate such information if it is true or it is just an opinion or kumbaga it falls under um, fake news or fake arguments, just like that. And this information may also give you a positive or negative impact on your life. I also have here this philosophical standpoint wherein people are seeking for the truth. Kaya ito yung naging sentro nung pinag-aaralan natin ngayon, which is yung philosophy. And this and in seeking for the truth, it will be discussed through this philosophical standpoint, such as in Phenomenology, Existentialism, Postmodernism, and Logical and Critical Thinking. So let's stop first dun sa Phenomenology. So in here, truth is based on person's consciousness. Based on person's consciousness. So Edmund Husserl is the founder of this phenomenology, and Immanuel Kant, Immanuel Kant, he also used this a word which is yung appearance. Alright, so it is based from the Greek word phenomenon. Alright, and Immanuel Kant also used this word appearance in order to portray the world of our experience. And Johnston in 2006. So he also gave his belief that this philosophical standpoint, which is yung phenomenology, um, he focuses on careful inspection and description of phenomena or appearance. So it helps us, itong phenomenology na to, in order to understand the meaning of people's life experience. So, the phenomena here, yung binabanggit natin phenomena kanina pa, alright? So it refers to the things or appearance of things as they appear on our experience. So the way we experience these things and also its impact or meaning or the meaning of these things have in our experiences. All right. And then next is yung existentialism, by which we base the truth on exercising choices and personal freedom. So for example, we have these free individual choices nga. Ano po? So for example, we have this friend. So he or she may affect us or you as a friend, but since we have this personal freedom or choices, so we are being or we have this or we are taking responsibility in our actions or choices, all right, since we have this free individual choices. So, may kalayaan tayo na mag-oppose on a certain thing or a situation and try to change it. Right? So, in postmodernism, it appropriately talks regarding the world philosophy such as the philosophy of many cultures where truth is not absolute. So, ito yung center nung postmodernism. So, truth is accepted that it is not absolute. So, postmodernists believe that humanity should appreciate the limits of reason or beyond the rational to the non-rational elements of human nature, including the spiritual and objectivism. And lastly, when it comes to logic and critical thinking, so in here, the truth is based on reasoning and critical thinking. So, critical thinking helps us to discover prejudice or to make careful judgment and become open to new ideas. Right? So, this logic and critical thinking also have paved way to freedom from half truths and deceptions, wherein we can also understand or discern facts or opinion or in terms of personal outlook, right? We have this ability to um, determine or to discern which are facts or truth or just an opinion, right? So we have here this essential tools in reasoning. Yeah, so ito yung pwede nating ma-integrate in analyzing or in investigating such information if it is a truth or not. So we have these two basic types of reasoning which are inductive and deductive. So, sa madaling sabi, ang inductive, it is making a conclusion from a specific or a certain thing um, to general, wherein ang deductive is general to specific. So, in inductive reasoning, it is based from observations to make generalization, which often applied in prediction or behavior. And deductive reasoning starts by drawing a conclusion from a judgment or definition to a more specific assertion. Ibig sabihin, inductive, it is from specific to general. So we have this observation and we make generalization or conclusion about it. And when we say deductive, we are drawing a conclusion first, okay, from a specific judgment and or definition to a more specific. Okay? Yun po ang pinagkaiba ng dalawa. So in here, um, truth versus opinion. So truth and fact are being used interchangeably, tama? But they are really two different ideas. They have their own definition, they have their own uses. So truth is something that is observable and empirical. So it is important to clarify knowledge when it comes to knowledge. It is a clear awareness and understanding of anything around you that is knowledge. And knowledge is also comprised of ideas and beliefs that we know to be true. Meanwhile, fact, okay, fact refers to the piece of information aiming of reality which is recognized by a greater whole. So fact is also a statement which are observable to be real or truthful. For example, dito in truth and fact, right? So, for example, no birds have no wings, right? It simply explain or it simply means that it is observable or it is evident that there are no birds that doesn't have wings unless na lang kung maputulan sila ng ano, 'di ba, ng wings. Okay? So, um in here, it is simply explained that it is observable and it is evident that there are no birds that doesn't have or that do not have wings. Since we can see it and we all know that all birds have wings. Alright? But there are some situations or statements or instances that needs further investigation. In order to recognize if it is true or false, kailangan natin mag-provide pa ng mga evidences to determine if it is true or not. Ayan, diyan kasi tayo minsan nalilito or diyan tayo minsan nagkakaroon ng difficulty in determining which is true or not. For example, my man is the best and smartest. Right? Pakinig niyo ba yun? My man is the best and the smartest. So, we cannot easily identify, or it is not easily evident to be known that the particular statement is true. Tama? My man is the best and the smartest. And kailangan pa natin ng marami pang investigation or examination para mapatunayan natin that a certain statement, yung binigay ko kanina, is true or false. Right? And therefore, if it is and if it is not true, and hindi natin siya napatunayan if it is true, therefore papasok siya dun sa opinion. Okay? Therefore, kung ito ay opinion lamang, so sinasabi dito na sinasabi natin kung ano lamang yung naobserbahan natin on a particular object or subject without further examination. Okay? So, opinion can be proven by verification and experimentation. So, in an argument is a series of statements that provides explanation to convince the listener or a reader that the opinion is truthful. So, we have two types of arguments. So, pakitandaan po nito. These are the fallacies and then the bias. So, ano nga ba yung pinagkaiba ng dalawa? So, we have this fallacy, or in Tagalog, maling pangangituwiran, which is, ito ay tumutukoy dun sa or it is composed of group of statements that appear to be argument to support the conclusion. So it also refers to the defect in an argument other than its having false premises. There are times when a person expresses point of view that mislead and attest nothing that is somehow may possibly sound convincing and persuasive to form others' belief and convey defective reason. So, ayan. So, fallacies may possibly sound convincing. And minsan, mapapersuade ka talaga or madadala ka dun sa, sa statement ng isang tao. Ano po? Yan yung sa fallacies. So, these are usually committed errors in reasoning which leads to a forged conclusion or misinterpretation of truth. Minsan, doon sa mali pangangatwiran natin, natatakloban na natin or na-misinterpret natin yung truth on a certain situation. While when we say bias, so it refers to the tendencies or influence which affects the views of the people. So we have here these different types of fallacies or fallacy. Okay? So dun tayo sa appeal to pity, or it is called as argumentum ad misericordiam. Okay? So, ibig sabihin dito sa appeal to pity, gumagawa ang isang tao ng dahilan para makuha niya ang simpatya ng ibang tao na nakapaligid sa kanya at suportahan or tanggapin ang isang bagay na gusto niyang mangyari. Okay? It urges and exploits the hearer or the opponent to accept and support the argument. Okay? By what? By provoking irrelevant feelings or simpatya. So, kinukuha niya yung simpatya ng maraming tao or ng ibang tao in order to accept or to support his or her argument. Kakaunawaan po. So, dito, example, I cannot take the exam. You have to consider my dog just died. Dun sa una nating example, hindi naman kasi ibig sabihin na kahit nawalan ka ng, for example, yun nga, yung dog, or ng alagang aso, ay hindi naman ibig sabihin na hindi ka nakukuha ng inyong examination. So, we all know that having pets is also important, but in this fallacy, Ayan, so it doesn't mean na kahit nawalan ka ng aso ay hindi ka na talaga kukuha ng examination. So, ayan, so alam ko, yun nga, napakahalaga sa inyo nun, but not most of the time is gagawin mong reason. Okay? Reason na nawalan ka ng aso kung kaya kailangan i-consider ng ibang tao. Okay? Ayan. So, example number 2, you should not find the defendant guilty of murder since it would break his poor mother's heart to see him sent to jail. So, kumbaga, papasok dito yung term natin na awa. Okay? Kasi, katulad na lamang ng statement na it would break his poor mother's heart. So, kumbaga, by provoking the feeling of sympathy, yan, makukuha nung taong yun, yung defendant natin, na yung simpatya ng mga tao. Okay? And then, uh, ayun nga, makukuha nung defendant yung simpatya ng mga tao dahil sa magulang niya na kung saan it would break his poor mother's heart if the defendant would be sent to a jail and if we find that defendant as guilty. And last example, it is not better to be unjust than just whether the just when the just man, while obeying the law, not to resist arrest, may be beaten, kicked, clubbed, insulted, and abused by those arresting him. So, ito naman ay isang statement or argument na kung saan ay pinamumulat sa atin yung difference between the just and then the unjust people, where a just person did not resisted himself to be arrested and being abused or insulted by the unjust people who arrested him. Right? So it falls under appeal to pity because it aims to become supported by provoking the feelings of sympathy to those just people. Next po is yung appeal to ignorance or argumentum ad ignorantiam. Okay, it occurs when your argument has not been proved false, must be true as there is no evidence against it. So, ibig sabihin naman ito, na ang isang argument or ang isang certain statement natin will remain true even if it is not, alright? As long as there is no supported evidences. Or pwede na rin sabihin natin, it is not considered as false since we have this limited proof that it is really false. That's why we considered it as true. Alright, so example number 1. Since you haven't been able to prove your innocence, I must assume you are guilty. So I know that you are all familiar with this example, especially in trials, whereas a person in some cases must remain to be guilty because he or she cannot provide any evidences for his or her innocence, that she didn't do anything to support his or her innocence. All right. For number 2, you know that scientists can prove that UFOs do not visit the Earth, so it makes sense to believe in them. So, dun sa number 2 example natin, ayan, ito. This example naman is nakabase dun sa statement natin na kung saan it persuades the listeners or the other persons to believe that the UFOs visiting the Earth, even though that scientists cannot provide other, any evidences. So, pero 'di ba, may ibang balita na nagsasabing may UFO nga, pero it requires you to think critically if those assumptions are true or not. So, ibig sabihin, this statement is said to be true since there are no sufficient evidence, okay, about this certain assumption. Okay? And last example, I guess I didn't get the job. They never called me back. Okay? This example explains that the person assumes that his claim is true, that he will never get a job since he thinks that the company never called him back. Although he really don't know if he or she will didn't get that particular job. Okay? Next po, fallacy of equivocation. It happens when using the same key term or phrase in an argument in an ambiguous way, but giving a particular word a different meaning. So it focuses on the same terms or phrases which are being used in an argument but shows different meanings or uses. So dito mapapansin ninyo na kung saan there are some terms or phrases that are that is being used repeatedly, but they have their own uses or they have their own meaning. So, doon sa mga examples na nabigay natin dito, maobserbahan nyo naman yung mga same terms natin na ginamit. Pero magkaiba naman yung meaning. Okay? Katulad na lamang dito sa ating unang example. Human beings have hands. The clock has hands. Ayan. Dito, binanggit yung hands na meron ng tao at ang orasan, but it portrays different uses. Since ang hands is different dun sa hand na mismong clock na tinutukoy natin. Okay? Next po, the last example, sa last example natin, her grandmother loves to eat apples, but she is the apple of the eye of her grandmother. I'm sure her grandmother will have a hard time eating her. Ayan. So, this last example shows the word apple. Okay, where the grandmother loves to eat apples and her grandchild is her apple of the eye. But it is truly, grandmother will have a hard time, yeah, tama naman yon, to eat her since it's not really possible to happen. Okay, so yung apple of the eye dito na tinutukoy is, kumbaga, yun yung, si grandchild is is a center of attraction ni grandmother. And that grandmother loves to eat apples lang naman, okay? Kaya pinaliwanag dito, I'm sure her grandmother will have a hard time eating her. Okay, kasi hindi naman talaga possible na kainin ng grandmother yung kanyang grandchild. Ano po? So dito, the apple of the eye means the center of attraction. Okay? Next is the fallacy of composition. So it infers that something is true to the whole from the fact that it is true of some part of the whole. So this is the opposite of the fallacy of division. So this fallacy of composition, so it refers to the truthfulness, the premise, or the truthfulness of the whole when the part of that whole is said to be true. Ayan, so mapapatunayan natin na totoo yung isang bagay when yung iba't ibang bagay na nagko-comprise sa kanya is napatunayan natin or nasabi natin na true. Kaya siya composition, it's because it is parts to whole. Okay? For example, dito, hydrogen is air, oxygen is air, therefore dihydrogen monoxide is air or H2O. Okay? So, just like dun nga sa ating given example, na kung saan pwede nating sabihin na characteristics niya, na kung ano ang sinabi sa premise na pwede nating sabihin ng characteristics niya at gumawa tayo ng conclusion about that, parts, at kapag pinagsama natin, katulad na lang ng in-explain ko kanina, is yung kabuuan niya is katulad lamang nung given parts. Okay? So, ayan nga, katulad nga ng example number 1 natin, since ang component nga po ng dihydrogen monoxide o yung H2O natin ay yung mga elements na hydrogen at saka oxygen, and it is classified as air, okay, that is why the given compound is also an air. Okay? Since ang parts dito is yung elements na kinocomprise ng ating compound. Okay? So, from parts to whole. Yung hydrogen and oxygen, yung parts, and then yung whole natin is yung compound natin, which is yung dihydrogen monoxide. Next example is about the bricks being used in creating a building. So, we have here this this statement, each brick in that building weighs less than a pound. Therefore, the building weighs less than a pound, right? So in here, they characterize that a brick weighs less than a pound so as the finished building. Okay, so ibig sabihin, less than a pound yung given weight ng each brick. Kaya, ang nangyari, since we're talking about the whole or yung building mismo, so meaning to say, it also weighs less than a pound. Okay, katulad na lang din sa example number 1 dito, sa fallacy of composition, hydrogen is not wet, oxygen is not wet, therefore, water or H2O is not wet. Okay? So, example lang din po yun, no? Fallacy of composition. Okay, next is yung fallacy of division, which is, it is an opposite of the fallacy of composition. Yan. So, it occurs when someone argues that what is true for the whole is also true for the parts of the whole. So, dito naman, kabaliktaran lamang po kung ano yung totoo dun sa pangkabuuan is totoo din dun sa mga parts niya. Okay, so it represents the truthfulness of the part of the whole when the whole is argued to be true. Katulad nga po ng sinabi ko. So, number one, number one example, overall, the food in our lunchroom is healthy and receives higher ratings from the health department. So, the chocolate chip cookies that they are serving must be healthy for me. Ang tinutukoy dito sa unang example ay yung mga pagkain which are used to be healthy. So, the speaker or yung nagsabi nitong statement na to assumes that the chocolate chip cookies are also healthy because it is a kind of food that is being served or kabilang to dun sa mga foods dun sa lunchroom nila na tinutukoy dito sa ating example. Naunawaan po. Next po, women in the United States are paid less than men. Therefore, my mom must make less money than my dad. So, since we're talking about fallacy of division, so in this example, the child or yung speaker, example number 2, assumes that his or her mother must make less money since the first statement explains that all women in their country is paid less than men. Okay? So, yung whole doon is kumbaga, yung tinutukoy doon is yung woman, okay? Lahat ng kababaihan sa lugar ng United States o dun sa country na United States. Therefore, yung part doon is yung nanay niya na kung saan is nag-earn ng less money than his or her dad. Okay? Number 3, her entire family is a family of beauty queens. I'm sure she will be a beauty queen too. So the speaker tries to convey that one member of the family of beauty queen must also be termed as a beauty queen too. Since we're talking about the whole to the parts, meaning to say, yung whole dun is yung entire family which is they are all beauty queens. And sinasabi dito sa speaker kung saan yung part doon is one member of that family must be or will be a beauty queen too. Okay? Next po, against the person or argumentum ad hominem. So it is a fallacious attack to an individual or his or her aspects rather than addressing the argument. So there are different types of this type of policy, okay, against the person. So it refers to some instances that instead of focusing on the premises or on your given statement, you are just dealing to the personal aspects of that person in convincing the audience. Okay, so ayan nga, this type of fallacy can be classified into 5, which refers to some kind of insult from giving up a mere personal attacks. It also tackles about the purpose of the person to make other persons to look bad based from their characteristics or personal um, characteristics. Okay, so we have here this abusive ad hominem, to coque, or two wrongs don't make a right, circumstantial ad hominem, genetic fallacy, poisoning the well. So we have here these examples. Okay, for number one, we cannot approve of these recycling ideas. It was thought of by a bunch of hippie communist weirdos. Okay, so this is just an example, right? So this example explains this number one example thought of not approving the idea of a certain person. Okay, since he or she thought that the idea was from a hippie weirdo. So, kumbaga, hindi mo a-accept yung idea na yun or hindi mo i-approve yung recycling idea na yun kasi pinaniniwalaan mo, okay, na ang gumawa nun is from a bunch of hippie communist weirdos. Okay? So, number two, you are irritatingly ugly. That is why you cannot be promoted. So, dito, since this type of fallacy, abusive ad hominem, okay, or yung against the person, or yung argumentum ad hominem, attacks the person based from his or her characteristic. That's why, dun sa example number 2 natin, they resisted the person to become promoted because of his or her personal characteristic. Yun po yung binabanggit dun sa against the person. So, they're just looking merely at the characteristic or personal aspect of a certain person. That's why, dun sa example number 2, sinabi dyan, that person cannot be promoted. Right? So I hope that you get it. And if you have clarifications or questions, just send me a direct message. Alright? Next po is yung appeal to force or yung argumentum ad baculum. So it occurs to an argument which uses actually an explicit or veiled threat in place of a reason in an attempt to give good reason for a conclusion. So it happens, this appeal to force, when a person imposes threat to another person or to a certain thing. Okay? So, parang katulad nung kung mapapansin nyo is yung mga chain messages. Okay? Na kung saan natatanggap nyo ng mga na message. Okay? Na kung minsan ginagamit to blackmail you. Okay? So, katulad lang yun nun sa appeal to force na kung saan dito, ang mangyayari, di ba, there is a specific situation na kung saan mapupush ka talaga na ipasa kasi may consequences na alam mo na yun, yung parang kinatatakutan mo na mangyari. Okay? That's why you are forced to send that certain message to other person. Okay? That's why it is called as appeal to force. Okay? Yun nga po, you are forced or you are being forced to do that certain thing because of being threatened. Okay? So, dun sa number 1, you have to pass this message to 10 people or else you will receive bad luck. Okay? So, parang ito yung binigay ko kanina, yung chain message natin. Okay? So, if you can observe these examples, and dun sa pangalawa natin, boss, why do I have to wear this goofy looking hard hat? And the boss said, it is state law, therefore company policy. No hat, no job. Yan. And then last is yung last example natin, China has threatened to restrict drug exports to the US following President Trump's accusation that the regime withheld news of the COVID-19 virus which surfaced in Wuhan last December. So, if you can observe the following examples which impose threat, sino ba naman ang kumbaga hindi matatakot na magkaka-receive ng bad luck? For example, sa number 1, kahit pa sabihin natin ito'y hindi makatotohanan or hindi talaga mangyayari sa iyo. Pero may ibang tao kasi, for example, sa number 1, na sinasabi na lamang na ipasa na lamang nila kasi wala namang mawawala. Tama? But next time, with this given example, you have to pass this message to 10 people or else you will receive our bad luck or dun sa mga nagsasample natin, you have to evaluate or paglimian mo muna ng maayos kung sakaling mapupunta ka sa ganung situation. If, for example, sa number 1, if you're going to send it to 10 people or you will receive bad luck, Yan, paglimian mo muna. Ano po, kasi minsan hindi naman talaga siya makatotohanan. Sometimes, people are just using this to blackmail you or kumbaga to impose threat. Okay? Next po is yung appeal to the people or argumentum ad populum. So it refers to the argument which exploits people's vanities, aspiration for esteem, and anchoring for popularity. It presumes that the proposition must be true because most or many people believe it to be true. So it refers to the proposition which is believed to be true because most people believe that it is true. Okay, naunawaan niyo ba yun? So, since maraming tao ang naniniwala dito, that's why we can say that it is true. And we presume that a certain proposition is true. Okay? So, based from the given examples, over 4 million people have switched to our insurance company, shouldn't you? Hundreds of millions of people have been Christians, devoutly following it and even dying for it. How could that be possible if Christianity weren't true? Some of the biggest stars in Hollywood support the cause of reducing pollution. Don't you want to help us as well? So, based from the given examples, since many people accepted and believe to that or to these certain propositions or this given statement, so you should have to believe it also as being true. Okay? Next po is yung false cause or post hoc. So it is a logical fallacy in which one event is said to be the basis of a later event, basically since it occurred earlier. And it also refers to the coincidental correlation and not causation. So, ibig sabihin dito sa false cause, ginagamit ng isang tao ang nakaraang experience niya or yung event sa buhay niya as a basis for new events. Okay? For example, this is number one. Our soccer team was losing until I bought new shoes. We have not lost a game since I got my lucky shoes. So for this example, it states that the soccer team does not have any losses. Okay, since one member has a new shoes and he termed it as a lucky shoes. So do you think that it is really correlated to what is happening? Okay, on their soccer team that they lose because of not having new shoes. Yan. So, sinasabi lamang dito na parang ang hinuha ng isang tao or yung iniisip niya ay nakabase sa kung ano yung nangyari sa kanya at naisip niyang makakatulong sa kanya um, kahit naman sa totoong buhay, halimbawa, hindi naman tayo nakabase sa pagkakaroon lamang ng bagong sapatos kung kaya sila nanalo. Yung sinasabi dito sa example number 1. Okay? Pero sa totoo ay dahil lamang iyon sa kanilang sariling kakayahan. So dito pumapasok yung false cause. So since binanggit dito na may lucky shoes, nakabili ng bagong sapatos, tinawag na lucky shoes, since pinaniniwalaan niya na yun yung nakapagpanalo sa kanila, sa soccer team nila. Okay? Then number 2, the temperature has dropped this morning and I also have a headache. The cold weather must be causing my headache. So, dito sa number 2 example natin ay inuugnay nung speaker or yung isang tao yung pagkakaroon niya ng sakit or nung headache. Dahil lamang doon sa nangyari sa kanyang paligid, okay, which is nag-drop yung temperature. And this speaker, yung sasalita dito sa ating statement na to, connects temperature drop to what is happening to his or her right now. Okay? Ayan po. So, yun po yung false cause. Okay? So, binabase ng tao yung later event sa buhay nila or yung mga nangyari sa kanila from the earlier event. Okay? So, yan po yung mga example natin. Okay, next po is yung hasty generalization. So, it is a type of logical fallacy wherein one commits an error if he or she draws a conclusion from small numbers or sample size and reaches an inductive generalization based on insufficient ideas. So, it occurs when one person draws from an inductive generalization or conclusion without considering sufficient evidences. So ito yung mga examples natin. Okay? Some examples either good or bad. Based from your experience, you think that the rest or the whole has the same thing to do to you. Okay? So, for the given examples, you visit a new country and the first person you meet in the airport is rude. You send a message to a friend back home that everyone in this new country is rude. So dito, ina-explain that there is a particular person that you have met in an airport. And yun nga, ano ba yung ugali niya na pinakita sa'yo? He or she is being rude. And you also have number two. Okay, a driver with a New York license plate cuts you off in traffic. You decide that all New York drivers are terrible drivers. And last example, 4 out of 5 dentists recommend Happy Glossy Smiley toothpaste brand. Therefore, it must be great. So dito, sa example number 2, you have encountered a horrible traffic. And yung sa mga binigyan nating example, you have concluded or you have jumped into a conclusion that you will experience it also or yun yung nabanggit mo since the whole place um, since you have experienced it from the whole place you've been. Okay? So, katulad nga ng number one, since ang na-meet mo um, is a rude one, therefore, nag-send ka sa mga friends mo na pinaniniwala mo na lahat ng tao dun sa country na yon ay rude. Okay? Next po, dun sa driver naman, okay, since na-stop ka dun sa traffic na yon, so you decided or you believe that all of the drivers on that particular city or country ay kumbaga is terrible drivers. Since kumbaga parang ang binabanggit mo dito is mauulit lang ulit or ayun nga, so they are terrible drivers. And dito, since 4 out of 5 dentists recommend this toothpaste brand, therefore, they believe that it is great. Okay? Ayan po. Yan po ang ina-explain sa hasty generalization. Yan. Basta ang pinipinpoint po dito sa hasty generalization is gumagawa ka ng conclusion based from a specific situation through a limited member or sample size to support your conclusion. Okay? Next po is yung begging the question or petition principi. So this is type of policy in which the proposition to be proven is assumed implicitly or explicitly in the premise. This is also recognized as circular reasoning. Essentially, one makes assertion based on facts that requires one to already accept that the claim is true. So it assumes, so dito sa begging the question, is assumes that a statement is self-evident or true when it actually requires proof, as it is also recognized as circular reasoning. For the given example, one must do what he or she must do as part of being considerate by the policy or the law. Okay, so we have here, you should drive on the right side of the road because this is what the law says, and the law is the law. Next is, the universe has a beginning. Everything that has a beginning has a cause. Therefore, the universe has a cause called God. Kaya yan po yung pinaniniwalaan. Since universe is may pinagmulan, therefore, yung universe has a cause and yun yung ating God. And murder is morally wrong, therefore, abortion is morally wrong. Okay? Next po is yung appeal to popularity. So it is making an argument that something is right or the correct thing to do because a lot of people agree with doing it. So this appeal to popularity, it occurs when you try to convince other people that a proposition is true because most or many people believe that it is true. So katulad nga ng sabi ko kanina, katulad lamang ito nung nating type of fallacy wherein it is known by many or popular by most people. So, you believe that it is true. Yun yung sa appeal to the people. Okay? Parang appeal to popularity lang din. And this type of fallacy is also called as bandwagon. So, here are the given examples. Everyone says that it's okay to lie as long as you don't get caught. It might be against the law to drink when you are 18 years old, but everyone does it, so it's okay. Last, there must be some truth to the fact that global warming is a hoax because approximately 25% of the population believes that it is a hoax. So, from the given examples, since you thought that everyone or most of the people around you were doing the same act, then it will affect you or your belief to change yours and go after them. So, in this example, number one, since many people say that it is just alright if you commit a lie, okay, as long as you are not or you are not being caught, then you would do the same. Okay, for example, number two, since you observed that people under the age of 18 must not drink but still they do it often, then you are being influenced or affected to do so, even if it is not okay. Since it is popular or a lot of people agree on doing it, okay, on that certain situation. Okay, and in here, meaning to say, this appeal to popularity, when there are people who supports that the claim is widely accepted, then you as a person or as an individual or as a member of the certain society must accept it as something that it is right or correct thing to do. Okay? Next is appeal to popular opinion. It urged the hearer to accept a position because majority of the people hold to it. Okay? It begins with an argument with a particular claim. It is popular to majority of the audience, thought it ends up endorsing the claim to be true. Okay? Ito yung mga examples natin. Everybody wants him or her to be the president. We should support him or her too. More and more merchants regard the local currency as losing value. Last is, many people think that the verb to emulate is a synonym of to imitate. Lastly, we have here this appeal to tradition or yung argumentum ad antiquitatem. So it tries to get someone to accept because it has been done or believed for a long time using historical preferences of the people or yung tradition, either in general or specific of a single individual, as evidence that the historical preference is correct. So it refers to the argument that is being or requires some person to believe that a certain statement or that certain argument is true since it has been believed for a very long time. Okay, yung pinaniniwalaan um, noon pa man. Okay, and it affects your preference or the preference of the people to believe that it is true. Okay, marriage has traditionally been between a man and a woman, therefore, gay marriage should not be allowed. Church should begin at 11 a.m. because that's the time that we have always begun the church service. My family has always gotten together for Christmas on Christmas night. I cannot ask them to move it now that we are married because that's the way we have always done it. Okay? The example shows about what is being accepted in the past or historical events before and connect it to what should be done as a part of the now. Okay? So, matagal na naman dati pinaniniwalaan pa rin naman talaga na marriage naman talaga is between a man and a woman na lang. Okay? And this time, yun nga, pinag-uusapan pa rin if uh, is allowed ba yung gay marriage natin. Ayan. So, in this example, since marriage is traditionally between a man and a woman, therefore, they do not allow the gay marriage. Okay? Yan po yung examples ng ating appeal to tradition. Philosophy can't assist as established ideas that are truthful and acceptable, which can be used in order to form our own views about certain matters. Distinguishing truth from falsehood can be done from deductive reasoning. Truth is a vague concept, thus, the philosophers formulated some theories to recognize truth. We have these three theories: the correspondence, the coherence, and the pragmatic. So, this correspondence, it is the most popular theory, which states the proposition must correspond with the fact or event in reality to be acknowledged as truth. So we can say that a certain proposition is true when it corresponds with a fact or an event. Yung mismong katotohanan lamang. Okay? So, dun sa ating number one, the proposition of birds can fly is true because in reality, we can really see that birds can really fly. Right? And dun sa ating pangalawa, a statement hard work pays off is an abstract assertion that would be true in the event a student performs well on a test after studying with focus and intensity. The statement, however, does not take into account other factors such as influential teachers, clearly structured textbooks, or a manageable schedule. Nevertheless, the fact that the student performed well after applying hard work in an efficient manner is evidence that the statement must be true. Last is the proposition of cats can bark is false. Yan. Because we knew that cats do not bark. That barking is only associated and applicable to dogs. Ayan. Next po is yung coherence theory. So, it measures coherence and consistency among statements within a system. Thus, coherence theory claims that a belief or a statement is true if and only if it logically flows within other beliefs that together form a comprehensive interpretation of reality. Last is the pragmatic theory, which refers to the proposition that is true if it is useful, as this theory of truth is related with the nature of truth through the principle of action and the notion of utility, right? And it also contends about the truthfulness of a belief if it has a realistic use in the existence of an individual. Okay, dun sa mga binigay na example dyan, the belief in the power of prayer is said to be true as it is needed for one's salvation. Okay, so sinasabi dito, ano ba yung notion of utility dito? By means of the power of the prayer. Kasi pinaniniwalaan dito that a prayer can um, um, protect you or save you. Okay? Or it is needed for your salvation. Next is, according to Sigmund Freud, many people can avoid despair if one believes that there is God who keeps a watchful eye on everyone. Ayan, um, so many people believe that your despair can be avoided because there is one who is always watching, okay, who keeps watching, ayan, who is God, okay? Yun po yun sa pragmatic theory. Ayan. So, in evaluating opinion naman, we have to understand the opinions and then the facts which can help us to improve our appreciation of varied views and ideas. So, in here, in evaluating opinion, we have this ability to determine the truth, okay, the facts or the opinion using our holistic point of view or holistic perspective, which is supported by a critical thinking. Kasi when we use that critical thinking and we have also this holistic point of view or holistic perspective, we are able to, or it may guide us in making decision and action in every situation. Okay? So, critical thinking is said to be careful, reflective, and rational, which refrains us from merely giving claims. Ayan. So, we have to use our critical thinking in observing, in making judgment, okay, in reflecting. Yan. So, not just by giving claims lang or yung mga opinions, okay? In a simple meaning, this critical thinking will help us in distinguishing facts from opinion. Okay? An opinion can be a belief or a judgment that has lack of certainty about a certain matter, which could be also in terms of personal views, attitude, appraisal, personal feelings. So, in evaluating opinions, we may use these evidences to support our assumptions if our beliefs, if we think or decide rationally. So we have here, we have to exercise the following in evaluating opinions. We have to determine the premise and conclusion of the following quotes or statements and make use of a critic as a critical thinking activity. So, yun yung makakatulong sa atin in evaluating opinion. Okay? Ayan. So, yun lamang naman po ang about dun sa methods of philosophizing. Again, we have this philosophical standpoint, which are the phenomenology, logical and critical thinking, postmodernism, and we have here this existentialism. Right? And we have this different types of fallacies. Okay? And the different theories. Okay, and also, yan, yung pag-evaluate ng opinion by which we have to use our holistic point of view and critical thinking. Ayan, so that will be all for today, and I hope you have learned something. So again, if you have questions or clarifications, you may send me a direct message. That would be all for today. Goodbye everyone, and thank you for listening.